Hey, welcome back, toy fans, toy collectors, and toy companies. A video I've wanted to do for a while addressing how to kind of make better toys through a buck system. But before I jump into that, a super quick correction from a previous video, when I actually posted earlier today, although with the internet, today doesn't really work, does it? It's the video where I was talking about some of the bases the Four Horsemen sculpted in the pre-DC Classics line, which was DC Superheroes. I talked about them over-sculpting, and as Cornboy had noted in the comments, nothing was done without Mattel's permission there. There were some times where accessories that might not have been on the original B sheet, but everything about those bases was planned. So just want to make sure that correction is out there, because I never want to throw the Horsemen under the bus, because they're too cool and too talented to ever blame for anything but awesomeness. Okay, so let's get back to our video about bucks, specifically toy bucks. And no, I'm not talking about like a deer buck. What I'm talking about by buck, it's an industry term meaning a blank body. A blank body that is used to basically be able to generate multiple different toys with. Barbie is also actually a good example of this. Barbie's body is used over and over again as a doll buck. But I'm specifically going to be talking about action figure bucks and how it relates to partially tooled and fully tooled figures. So you'll see, like in this Marvel Legends shot, Beast up there at the top left is a fully tooled figure. But everyone else is partially tooled because they make use of a buck system, meaning reusable basic parts. And what I'm going to go through in this video is to talk about what bucks are kind of essential to having a very robust and long life for an action figure line, and then what bucks kind of happened by accident or just sort of, wound up being. So the first one is your basic male buck, your basic superhero buck. This is going to be probably about 50% of your characters, whether you're doing wrestling or superheroes, any muscular, heroic character. And it's important because it keeps the characters in scale to each other, which is so important. And by doing a buck scientifically, by having a belt that's replaceable and gloves that are replaceable, it allows you to do virtually unlimited characters. Meaning Superman here is the same exact parts as the Batman you were just looking at, or the Batmen, except with a different belt. Same thing, Green Lantern here. The belt part is removed, and he gets a new fist with a ring and a new head, and there you have a new figure. That's how the buck system works. The second buck is the female. So again, it's not going to work for every female figure, but by having a generic base body, you are able to create tons and tons of different characters with minimal new parts without having to fully tool every figure, which can be a huge drain on the budget. So this is a good example here. Here is Dove, the female version, and she just uses the basic female buck, but she has a new collar piece and a new head, which allows her to be an original figure. But the basic body is reusable, and things like gloves and boots are even painted on to minimize the number of new parts needed. Now, you're not going to be able to make every female character this way. There are going to be some that require original body types or original pieces. And again, I'm not, same thing with the males. It's not a universal solution. But by doing bucks smartly, you can save a lot of money. The next one up is sort of the more muscular male buck. So slightly bigger than the regular male for those characters that, are a little more beefed up. Hawkman, I think, was the first character in DCU Classics to use this. Martian Manhunter also used this buck. So this one kind of becomes your third buck after basic male and basic female is what we call the buffed up male. All right, the next one, surprisingly, is going to be your suit male. And this one actually did wind up surprising me as well, how many times this gets used. You don't think there's that many superheroes wearing suits, but between the bad guys and the civilian outfits, the DC suit buck was actually originally created for Clark Kent back in the DC superhero days. but then we picked it up and we used it for a lot of characters. Now you'll notice the Joker does not use it. I'm going to get to him in a little bit. So it's not for all characters and suits, but again, it really surprised me during the breadth of the DCU Classics line just how many characters wound up using the suit buck, way more than I think we thought of in the beginning, which is why I really bumped this up to the number 4 buck that's needed when making a new line. All right, after that, we're going to get into our 5th buck, what I call the Hulk buck, the giant, huge character that's bigger than a basic male. And again, if done smartly, this can be a buck that's reused over and over again. So the DC version of this buck would be a Kilowog, if you will. So this is, kind of in Hulk scale. And, again, I'm using DC just as the example because I worked on that, but I'm peppering in some Marvel ones as well. So the Hulk buck in, for DC figures was also used for characters like Doomsday in his containment suit. And, it's funny, again, much like the suit buck, we wound up using it more than I expected. Archillo is another example. I mean, that would be basic. But again, new belt, new wrists, new head, new hands, and you have a new character. All right, the next one up is your teen male. So as a line expands and you need a buck that is smaller than the basic male for appropriate scale, you need a teen buck. And again, doing this smartly by having a removable belt, the belt is a separate piece, the wrists, gloves are a separate piece, the boots are a separate piece. It allows you to do this smartly and not have to fully sculpt every single figure. I think having the belt be a removable piece is probably one of the biggest innovations that DCU Classics did. After that, we have our female teen buck. So much like the male teen, the female teen pretty much makes sense. You're going to have teenage females just as you'll have teenage males, for your Teen Titans or your New Mutants, whatever it may be. Next up, we're going to get into some bucks that were kind of what I'll call accidental bucks, ones that weren't really intended to be bucks, but they worked well. So this one was the giant robot buck, which was originally used for Stell as part of the Green Lantern Classics wave during the Green Lantern movie time. And surprisingly, we found that we used this buck for Stripe. It wasn't intended, like when we made him, it wasn't with the idea, but it worked out because, again, the Four Horsemen are really smart about this stuff. So you can see the similarities. There were some new, gauntlets, new shoulder pads, but the basic robot body was able to get reused for both Stripe and Stell. All right, rounding everything out, we have sort of the skinny male suit buck. So this is one that was actually done intentionally, but it was because we knew we had 2 characters. So Gentleman Ghost here, who originally used the buck, it was actually tooled with a removable lapel pin or flower because we knew that we'd be able to reuse it for Joker. I remember when Gentleman Ghost came out, everyone was like, oh my gosh, that would be a perfect Joker body. And, well, yeah, that was intentional. That's why we did it. It was not just a happy accident the way we had with Stell and Stripe back there. This one was intentional, where we knew we could reuse the body. It was, about thinking smartly. So, of course, you're going to get into your fully tooled figures, too. And it's pretty much for every fully tooled figure is going to require 6 or 7 partially tooled figures to help offset the cost. Which, again, if you look at this wave, which I showed in the beginning, Beast as a fully tooled figure is possible because he's included with a selection of shared tool figures. So when you're doing your fully tooled figures, it's important to really think about who truly needs a fully tooled body. Thing is a perfect example. There's no way you're going to be able to share a body with Thing. So he's a good use of a fully tooled slot, as opposed to other characters, which may not be. And that's why working smarter and not necessarily harder is really a key to a successful action figure line, and that is what a buck system is. So when people are asking, what is a buck? Send them to this video, and now you guys know and how reuse parts work. I hope you've enjoyed this. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys around the internet.